Hello and welcome to part 1 of this 5-part video series on off-season triathlon training by Ben Fitness. In this first video, I'd like to talk about when to start your triathlon season. You know, there's a lot of information out there about the off-season and off-season training, but there's not a lot of information about when to start your off-season. There's a lot of variables that can dictate exactly when you start, and it might not be after your last race per se. So I'm going to go over each of these variables and kind of give you an idea of when you should enter your off-season. So first scenario would be you finished your last race. Now if you did, you'd say Ironman World Championships in Hawaii in October, that would be a good situation where you might as well just call it the off-season, because when you return back to the Western Hemisphere, it's going to start being winter, rain, snow, things like that. So in that situation, and if you finished a race in, let's say, October, call it the off-season, and I'll go into the details in the following videos on exactly what an off-season should be. But in a lot of situations in the Western Hemisphere, and especially in the Northwest, races the last couple triathlons tend to be in September and October, and the weather's still good up until November, December. So I encourage athletes to keep training. Use the weather to your advantage and slowly enter into the off-season instead of just abruptly doing a race and then entering the off-season. So you can take advantage of the weather by doing some long, slow rides, having fun with outside training like trail runs or mountain biking, but still maintaining and even building your triathlon fitness even though you don't have a race coming up or nothing might be on the calendar or you have no, intentions of racing anytime soon. It's still a good time to maintain fitness, especially if your motivation is high and you want to keep training. Now, if you become injured at any part in your season, I'm not just talking about off-season here, if you become injured at any part of your season, that is when I would consider you entering an off-season. So it's a period of time where you're not going to be training, therefore I would consider it an off-season. The best step you can do if you get injured at any part of your season is shift your mindset to thinking, all right, now I'm in the off-season, I don't need to heal quickly or anything, because that's going to rush you back in and you're probably going to get re-injured. So I say stop immediately, focus on fixing the injury permanently. So identify what was wrong. Let's say it's a IT band syndrome or Achilles tendon. Get with a physical therapist, seek out experts, and heal that injury before you jump into training. And like I said, keep that mindset. It's the off season. I have time. My season's done. I would just, unless it's a very small injury, you can heal it in a couple weeks and you're good to go. Get it in your mind that it's going to take a long time. Therefore, I'm not going to focus on anything else this season until next season and just take an extended off season. So that's another situation where you'd want to enter your off season if you had a serious injury. Another reason to enter the off season period of your training would be mental burnout. And I've personally experienced this. I've trained super hard for, let's say, 10, 11 months for a triathlon or several triathlons, and I race all season, and towards the end, it's just like, I don't want to train anymore. I'm burned out. So that's when I say, all right, now I'm going to enter my off-season. If I'm just not enjoying swimming, biking, and running anymore, then I'm going to enter the off-season and take some time off. And that could be, the typical off-season during 3 to 4 winter months, or that could be a year. I was talking to another triathlon coach, and he decided just to take a year completely off of triathlon to find more enjoyment in swimming, biking, and running. And excuse me, the key word I'd like to mention here is give yourself permission to start the off-season and stop training, especially if you don't have anything else on the schedule and you're in a point in your life where you don't have to necessarily race. Another good reason to start your off-season is simply other sports and interests. In my area, when skiing season comes around, triathlon just gets put on the back burner for many individuals, and they're like, boom, skiing started, triathlon stopping. I'm going to hop into skiing, cyclocross, other hobbies, or they just simply can't wait to do new things. And another thing that I've experienced is, for example, I'm getting interested in obstacle races, and even though I'm training for triathlon and I'll always be a triathlete, towards the end of this year I started to really look at doing an obstacle race, and I was so excited. I would rather train for that than swim, bike, and run. And so that's another situation where you could enter your off season then as your goals shift. Another excellent reason is you simply want a longer off season, and this is what I recommend for newer triathletes and newer age groupers who, let's say, they had their first year and they trained really hard. Take some time. It doesn't some people say, 2 weeks, 6 weeks. I say it could be 12 weeks or 3 months where you have a longer off season just to spend more time with your family. And many athletes have experienced that they've done better in the in-season if they take a longer off-season. So you'd have to have some experience to know that. But keep that in mind, that it's okay to take a longer off-season. And it's a safe way to avoid burnout. So, training year after year after year can cause burnout. So maybe take some longer off-seasons and see how your motivation and mental fitness stays, on top of its game. So those are all my suggestions for when you should enter an off-season. It's not so black and white as many triathlon books make it as, you finish your last season, it's off-season. Because like I said, there's several months maybe until winter's bad. So take advantage of training unless you're injured, mentally burnt out, want to try other things, or you simply want a longer off-season. So stay tuned. In part 2, I'm going to discuss exactly how to enter your off-season and why you should take some time off.